I've lived 58 years on this earth, and in all that time, I thought I knew what counted as an emergency. I've worked construction through blizzards, sat by my wife's hospital bed after surgery, and driven 100 miles through a storm to help a friend change a tire in the dead of night. But nothing prepared me for the sound of my younger brother's voice when the phone rang a little after 2 o'clock that morning. At first, I thought it was a wrong number. The voice was trembling, ragged, almost unrecognizable. But then I caught the name, Sean, it's Daniel. Please, you have to help me. My heart clenched. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. His words came in short bursts, broken by cold and panic. They locked me out. I don't know what to do. I'm outside. It's freezing. Please, Sean, I'm so cold. I shot upright in bed, heart pounding like I'd just run up 10 flights of stairs. Daniel lived only 20 miles away, but in that moment, it felt like the distance between us was impossible. Where are you exactly? I asked, fumbling for a pair of jeans and my boots with one hand while holding the phone with the other. Out front of my own house, he said. Margaret and Andrew. His voice cracked, and I heard the unmistakable sound of teeth chattering. They threw me out. Said I didn't belong there anymore. Sean, I don't know why. I could hear wind in the background, the hollow sound of a winter gust rushing across an empty street. I didn't need him to explain further. My brother was standing outside in nothing but a thin coat, locked out by his own family, and the temperature had been dipping near single digits that week. I'm coming, I told him, jamming my truck keys into my coat pocket. Don't move, Daniel. Just stay where you are. I'll be there as fast as I can. The drive felt like a punishment. The highway stretched long and dark, the yellow lines blurring under the dim glow of my headlights. Every stoplight felt like an eternity, every mile marker like a taunt. My hands gripped the wheel so tight that my knuckles ached. Daniel and I hadn't always been close. We'd had the usual brotherly distance, jobs, marriages, children that pulled us in different directions. But blood is blood, and hearing him so broken, so stripped of dignity, lit something inside me I hadn't felt in years, the fierce urge to protect him no matter the cost. I kept replaying his words. They locked me out. Not strangers, not a neighbor, not even a burglar. His own wife and his only son had turned him away like a beggar in the night. What could drive a family to that? I couldn't imagine Margaret, the woman who'd once laughed at our family cookouts, or Andrew, the boy who used to ride on Daniel's shoulders, being capable of such cruelty. When I pulled onto Daniel's street, the scene hit me like a blow. The snow was piled high along the curbs, glittering under the moonlight, and there, hunched against the mailbox at the edge of the driveway, was my brother. He looked smaller than I remembered, his broad frame bent in on itself, his arms wrapped tight across his chest. His hair, once jet black, was streaked with gray and damp with frost. Even in the shadows, I could see the deep lines of exhaustion etched into his face. "Daniel!" I shouted, slamming my truck door and rushing toward him. His head jerked up, and for a second I saw something in his eyes that chilled me more than the night air. Fear. Not just the fear of the cold, but the fear of being unwanted, discarded. He staggered to his feet, nearly slipping on the ice, and stumbled into my arms. "God, Sean," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I didn't think you'd come." "Of course I came," I said, steadying him. His whole body shook violently against mine, his coat nothing more than a thin barrier against the bitter air. "Let's get you in the truck." Inside the cab, I cranked the heat to full blast. Daniel pressed his hands to the vents, but they trembled so hard he could barely keep them steady. His lips were pale, his teeth clattering with every word. He started, staring at the dashboard, like it might swallow him whole. "They told me to get out." Andrew said I'd lied to him his whole life. Margaret didn't say a word. She just turned the lock. I kept my eyes on the road, but my chest burned. "Why?" What were they talking about? Daniel swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing like he was choking something back. Secrets, he whispered finally. Things I should have told them years ago. About the money, about what I kept hidden. I glanced at him. His eyes were wet, not just from the cold, but from shame. My little brother, proud, stubborn Daniel, reduced to this, and I had the feeling this was only the beginning. The heater slowly thawed his skin, but it couldn't warm the distance I felt in that cab. There was something unsaid hanging heavy between us, something that made my stomach knot tighter with every passing mile. He kept staring down at his wedding ring, twisting it on his finger like he wanted to disappear. Finally, I broke the silence. Daniel, what aren't you telling me? For a long moment he didn't answer. The only sound was the whir of the heater and the hum of the tires on asphalt. Then, in a voice so low I almost missed it, he said, They know about the inheritance. About the land. About the bonds I never told anyone I had. My hands stiffened on the wheel. Inheritance, land, bonds. None of this made sense. Daniel and I grew up in the same modest house, scraping through the same lean years. If there had been money, I'd never seen a dime of it. But before I could ask, he looked at me with eyes full of guilt and fear. Sean, he said, his voice raw, it's worse than you think. Much worse. I didn't press him then. He was too fragile, his body still thawing from the cold, his mind scattered with fear. But as we pulled into my driveway and I helped him into the warmth of my home, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever secrets Daniel had been hiding, whatever drove Margaret and Andrew to lock him out of his own house in the dead of night, this wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal, and it was about to tear our family apart. The first thing Daniel did when we stepped into my house was collapse into the armchair by the fireplace. I hadn't lit it in weeks, winter bills being what they are, but tonight I struck the match without a second thought. The fire caught quick, orange light flickering across Daniel's face as he leaned forward, holding his hands out to the heat, like a child desperate for warmth. I'd seen my brother in plenty of states over the years, angry, proud, stubborn, even drunk on more than one occasion, but never like this. He looked hollow. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his lips were cracked from the cold. His eyes had a faraway look, like he'd left part of himself behind out there on the front porch, where Margaret and Andrew had shut the door on him. Drink this, I said, pressing a mug of coffee into his shaking hands. Sean! His voice broke on my name. He tried to say more, but his throat tightened, and for a moment he just sat there, gripping the mug like it was the only solid thing left in his world. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. Finally, after a few sips, he set the mug down and stared at the fire. I never thought it would come to this, he whispered. I thought I could handle it quietly. Keep it from them until it didn't matter anymore. But they found out, and now, his voice cracked again, now I don't have a family. I sat across from him, elbows on my knees, studying his face. You've got me, I said firmly. Whatever this is, whatever you've done or kept from them, we'll face it together. But you've got to start telling me the truth. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the pocket of his thin coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. His hands trembled as he unfolded it and passed it across to me. It was an appraisal document, yellowed at the edges but still crisp enough to read. My eyes scanned the figures, and I nearly swore out loud. 350 acres? I asked. In Vermont? Daniel nodded slowly, his jaw tightening. Left to me by Uncle Walter. Mom's brother. You remember him? I did. A wiry man with sharp eyes and sharper words. He'd lived like a hermit after his wife passed, rarely coming to family gatherings. We'd always assumed he died broke. I thought he had nothing, I said. So did everyone else. But he owned land, a lot of it, and bonds too. Blue chip stocks he bought in the 70s. I found it all in his will after he died. Daniel's voice was flat, lifeless. I kept it quiet. I didn't tell Margaret, didn't tell Andrew, didn't tell you. I thought maybe I could decide what to do with it on my own. The fire popped, sending sparks upward. I let the silence stretch, trying to absorb what he'd said. My brother had been sitting on a fortune, not a small windfall, but a life-changing sum, for years, and no one knew. Why? I finally asked, and Daniel looked at me, his eyes wet. Because I saw what money did to families, Sean. I saw uncles fighting over scraps, cousins suing each other, marriages falling apart. I thought if I kept it hidden, maybe I could spare us all that. Maybe I could use it for good when the time was right. Scholarships, hospitals, things that mattered. I shook my head slowly. And Andrew found out. His face tightened. Vanessa did. The name dropped between us like a stone. Vanessa, Andrew's wife. I'd never liked the girl. Too polished, too sweet on the surface, like a smile stretched over something darker underneath. She always seemed to know more than she should, always asking questions that sounded innocent, but weren't. She was helping Margaret organize some papers, Daniel said, voice bitter. Came across the deed, the appraisal, a few statements. She confronted me first, then Andrew. By the time I tried to explain, she'd already poisoned him against me, told him I'd stolen his future, lied to him his whole life. My hands clenched into fists. And Margaret? She didn't defend me. Didn't even ask questions. She just stood by the door, holding the knob. And when Andrew said I wasn't welcome anymore, she turned the lock. His voice broke again, the image too painful to hold steady. I sat back, heart pounding with anger. My brother, the man who had worked his whole life to provide, discarded like a stranger by his own wife and son, and all because of money. Daniel, I said carefully, how much are we talking about? His eyes flicked to the fire, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, in a hoarse whisper, he said, close to $1 million, maybe more. The room went still. The fire crackled, the clock ticked, but everything else froze. $1 million. Hidden for years. No wonder Vanessa's eyes had lit up like a predator's when she found the papers. You should have told me, I said finally, my voice tight. I know, Daniel whispered, but once I didn't. Once I kept it from you, it got harder every year. The longer I held on to it, the more ashamed I felt. And now, he gestured helplessly at himself, hunched by my fire like a man without a home. Now I've lost everything that mattered more than money ever could. We sat in silence after that. I watched the fire, my mind racing, my chest heavy with questions I wasn't ready to ask. Why had he kept this secret so long? What else wasn't he telling me? And how far would Vanessa and Andrew go now that they knew the truth? One thing was certain. They had crossed a line. Whatever inheritance, whatever secrets. Nothing excused leaving a man to freeze on his own doorstep. As the fire burned low and Daniel finally drifted into a restless sleep, I looked at him and felt a wave of resolve settle over me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Margaret and Andrew had made their move. Vanessa had revealed her hand. Now it was my turn. Because no matter what Daniel had hidden, no matter how badly he'd handled it, he was still my brother. And I wasn't about to let greed tear our family apart without a fight. By the time morning light crept across my kitchen windows, I was already awake. I hadn't slept a wink, though Daniel had drifted into a fitful doze in the armchair. His body twitched from time to time, as though even his dreams couldn't give him peace. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee cooling in my hands, staring at the steam and trying to make sense of the night. $1 million, hidden for years. My brother, the man I thought I knew, had been carrying a secret bigger than anything I could have imagined. When he finally stirred, blinking against the pale light, I saw in his eyes the weight of a man who knew the truth could no longer be buried. He looked older than his 55 years, the lines on his face carved deeper by shame and exhaustion. "Morning," I said quietly. "Morning," he replied, though his voice cracked like it hurt just to speak. He sat up slowly, stretching stiff limbs, and when his eyes fell on the empty mug on the hearth, he gave a humorless chuckle. "Guess I wasn't dreaming." "No," I said. "You weren't. And we need to talk. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I figured you'd say that." I motioned to the table, and we sat across from each other. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock, each second dragging like a hammer on steel. "Start from the beginning," I said. "All of it." "No more half-truths, Daniel. If I'm going to stand beside you in this, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with." He nodded, though the movement was reluctant. His shoulders hunched like a schoolboy caught cheating. Then he took a breath and began. "You remember Uncle Walter?" he asked. I frowned. "The cranky old man in Vermont?" Of course, he wasn't just cranky. He was shrewd. When his wife passed, he pulled back from everyone. But he didn't waste his years. He bought land, invested in bonds, held on to stocks when everyone else was selling. When he died, most of the family assumed he left nothing, because he lived like a pauper. But he left it to me. I leaned back, stunned, despite what I'd already seen on the papers. "Why you?" Daniel's lips twisted into something between pride and regret. "Because I was the only one who visited him after Aunt June died. Remember those summers when you were busy with work and I took a couple trips up there? I thought I was just keeping him company. Turns out he decided I was the only one worth trusting." His eyes drifted down to his hands. "When I opened the will, I couldn't believe it. Acres of farmland, bonds, and stocks worth hundreds of thousands. And I didn't tell anyone. Not Margaret, not Andrew, not you. I just tucked it away." I shook my head slowly. "You carried this for years?" He nodded, shame creeping into his voice. "At first I told myself it was temporary, that I'd find the right time. But the longer I waited, the harder it got. Every time Margaret asked about our savings, every time Andrew talked about his future, I felt the lie get heavier. And then—" His voice trailed off. "Then Vanessa found out," I finished for him. His jaw tightened. "She's sharp." Too sharp. She saw one bank statement that didn't add up, and she started digging. When she came across the deed, her eyes lit up like she'd struck gold. She showed it to Andrew, spun it like I'd robbed him of his inheritance. And Margaret— His voice faltered. Margaret didn't question it. She believed them, believed that I'd betrayed them. I clenched my fists under the table. "So they threw you out." He nodded again, like I was a stranger on their doorstep. "My own wife, my own son." He swallowed hard, his eyes wet. "Do you know what it feels like, Sean? To see your boy look at you like you're a thief? To see your wife turn the lock and not even flinch?" I looked at him for a long moment, my chest tight. "Yeah," I said softly. "I can imagine. And I'll tell you this much, it's not going to stand." But even as I said it, a question gnawed at me. "Daniel," I said carefully, "what exactly are we talking about?" "How much?" He hesitated, then whispered, "The land's worth about 600,000. The stocks, maybe 400, give or take. There might be more, depending on the market." I exhaled sharply, running a hand over my face. $1 million. More than enough to twist love into greed. More than enough to turn a wife and son against their husband and father. "And what did you plan to do with it?" I asked. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "Donate most of it." "Hospitals, scholarships, maybe set up a foundation in Uncle Walter's name." He hated the idea of families squabbling over money. I thought I could honor that. But now— His voice cracked. "Now all I've done is create the very thing I was trying to prevent." Silence hung between us, heavy and bitter. I thought about Andrew, about the boy who used to race me in the yard, who'd sit on Daniel's lap at ball games. I thought about how easily Vanessa had turned him, how quickly Margaret had chosen her pride over her vows. You can't fix this alone, I said finally, and you sure as hell can't run from it anymore. If Vanessa and Andrew think they're going to bully you into handing it over, they've got another thing coming. But first, I need to know something. Daniel looked at me, wary. Is there anything else you're hiding? He flinched, which was all the answer I needed. Daniel, I pressed, my voice sharp, don't you dare keep another secret from me. Not now, not after all this. He looked down, his hands tightening into fists. For a moment I thought he'd stay silent, but then he whispered, there are bonds. Additional ones. I never told anyone, not even Margaret. If they find out about those two... He trailed off, fear etched across his face. I leaned back in my chair, my gut churning. $1 million wasn't the end of it. There was more. Always more. I thought of Vanessa's sharp smile, of Andrew's anger, of Margaret's silence. This wasn't just a fight about money. This was going to be a war. And wars have casualties. As I sat there, watching my brother crumble under the weight of secrets he'd carried too long, I made myself a promise. If they wanted a war, I was ready. Because nobody, not Vanessa, not Andrew, not even Margaret, was going to treat my brother like trash and get away with it. By the following afternoon, I knew I couldn't stall any longer. Daniel had spent the morning pacing the floor of my living room like a caged animal, muttering half-thoughts under his breath. Every time he tried to sit, he was up again within minutes, wringing his hands, staring out the window like he expected Margaret or Andrew to come marching up the driveway with pitchforks. I'd watched him crumble for one night, and that was enough. We weren't going to sit and wait for the storm to swallow him whole. We were going to walk right into it. Daniel, I said finally, we're going back. His head snapped toward me, fear flashing in his eyes. Back? Yes, I said firmly. To your house. To Margaret and Andrew. You can't keep running. If they think they can throw you out and scare you into silence, they'll never stop. It's time we face them head on. He sank into the armchair, burying his face in his hands. Sean, you don't understand. Vanessa won't back down. She'll twist Andrew tighter around her finger, and Margaret won't lift a word against her. Then we untwist it, I said. We take the truth straight to them. No more secrets, no more shame. If you want to save what's left of your family, you've got to stand. Up now. Otherwise, Vanessa will own every piece of you before this is over. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. He looked at me a long time, his lips trembling. Then slowly, he nodded. The drive to Daniel's house was tense, every mile thick with the kind of silence that presses down on your chest. I kept my eyes on the road, but out of the corner of my eye I could see Daniel gripping his knees so tight his knuckles had gone white. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always. 2-story colonial, pale blue shutters, wreath still hanging on the door from Christmas, but something about it felt different, colder, like the warmth that once lived inside had been bled out overnight. Margaret opened the door before we could knock. Her face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't greet us. She just stepped aside. Andrew was in the living room, arms crossed, jaw set. Vanessa sat beside him on the sofa, legs crossed neatly, a legal pad balanced on her lap. She looked up at us with that too sweet smile that never reached her eyes. Well, she said softly, the prodigal father returns. Daniel froze in the doorway, but I gave him a firm nudge forward. We stepped inside, the air heavy and stale, like the house itself was holding its breath. Andrew spoke first, his voice tight. Why didn't you tell me, Dad? Why did I have to find out from Vanessa instead of hearing it from you? Daniel swallowed, his throat working hard. Because I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of exactly this. Of money tearing us apart. I wanted to keep it quiet until I figured out the right way to use it. Vanessa let out a sharp laugh. The right way? You mean giving it away? Donating it to strangers while your own son struggles to keep a roof over his head? Andrew's jaw tightened. Is that true? You were planning to give it all away? Daniel's eyes flicked toward me, searching for strength. Then he nodded. Yes, that was my plan. To honor my uncle's memory by using it for something good. Andrew's voice cracked with anger. Something good? And what about your family? What about me? You lied to me my whole life, Tad. Made me think we were scraping by when you had money hidden away. I stepped forward, my voice steady but sharp. He didn't lie to hurt you, Andrew. He kept it quiet because he didn't want this. Exactly what's happening right now. Look at yourselves. You're ready to tear him apart because of money? Vanessa's smile vanished, her eyes narrowing. And who are you to lecture us, Sean? You've got nothing to lose in this. You don't have a wife who's been kept in the dark, or a son who's been robbed of his future. I turned my gaze on her. No, I've got something else. I've got the clarity to see exactly what you're doing. You found those papers, and instead of encouraging Daniel to be honest, you used them to poison Andrew against his own father. Don't think I can't see through it. Her lips tightened, but she didn't flinch. Andrew's voice rose again. Dad, answer me this. If Vanessa hadn't found out, would you ever have told me? Daniel's shoulders sagged. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe not. Maybe I would have carried it until I died, and I was wrong for that. I should have trusted you. Trusted all of you. But Andrew... His voice trembled, breaking on the name. I never stopped loving you. I never wanted to hurt you. Andrew looked at him with eyes hard as stone. You already did. The words landed like a punch. Daniel flinched, and I felt the sting myself. But I wasn't about to let them break him down. Enough, I said firmly. You want to be angry, Andrew? Be angry. But don't forget the woman whispering in your ear is the one who's been steering this from the start. She doesn't care about your future. She cares about control. Vanessa's cheeks flushed, but she leaned forward, her tone smooth as glass. Control? Please, Sean, all I want is fairness. Andrew deserves his inheritance. Margaret deserves security. What Daniel was planning was selfish. And if he won't see reason, then maybe the courts will. There it was, the real threat. A lawsuit. Daniel's breath caught, his eyes widening. You wouldn't... Oh, I would, Vanessa said coolly. Fraud, concealment, intentional withholding of assets from his legal heirs. We've already spoken to a lawyer. It's all very possible. The room went silent. The fire in Andrew's eyes flickered, uncertainty flashing across his face, but Vanessa's hand on his knees steadied him like reins on a horse. I looked at my brother, pale, trembling, cornered, and felt fury burn through me. You think money gives you power, I said to Vanessa, but you don't know me. You don't know Daniel, and you sure as hell don't know what it means to cross this family. Her smile returned, sharper than ever. Then prove it. As we left that house, Daniel leaning heavily on me, I knew this was only the beginning. Vanessa wasn't bluffing. She was building her case. And Andrew, he was already halfway lost to her. But one thing was clear to me. If they wanted a war, then war was exactly what they were going to get. The drive back from Daniel's house felt heavier than the drive there. He sat slumped against the passenger door, staring out into the gray afternoon as if the sky itself had turned against him. I gripped the wheel tighter than I needed to, jaw clenched, replaying Vanessa's words over and over. Fraud, concealment, intentional withholding of assets. She hadn't said them like a bluff. She'd said them like ammunition already loaded and aimed. When we pulled into my driveway, Daniel didn't move. He stayed in his seat, eyes distant, his breath fogging the window. You coming inside? I asked gently. He turned his head slowly, and for the first time since this all began, I saw something I hadn't expected in his eyes. Not just fear, not just shame, but defeat. What's the point, Sean? He whispered. They've already made up their minds. Vanessa has Andrew convinced I'm the enemy. Margaret won't stand up to her. And now lawyers are involved. I don't stand a chance. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. I killed the engine and turned toward him. Listen to me. You are not done. You hear me? You've made mistakes, yes, but you're not going to roll over and let Vanessa dictate your life. If she wants a fight, then we give her one, but on our terms. He shook his head. I don't have it in me. That's fine, I said, because I do. Inside, I made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, then set the mug in front of Daniel. He wrapped his hands around it like it was the only thing tethering him to reality. Tell me, I said, is she bluffing about the lawyer? His eyes flicked up to mine, then back down. No, they've been talking to someone. Andrew mentioned it weeks ago when the tension first started. Vanessa said she wanted to understand their options. I thought it was just talk. Now. He trailed off. I leaned back, exhaling hard. All right. So she's serious. That means she thinks she has leverage. But here's the thing about leverage, Daniel. It only works if the other person stays quiet. You've been quiet too long. It's time we turn the spotlight on. Her Daniel frowned. What do you mean? I said slowly, Vanessa isn't just pushing this for Andrew's sake. She's pushing it for herself. People don't dig through papers and chase lawyers out of love. They do it because they want control, and people like her. I let the words hang. They usually have something to hide. That got his attention. His brow furrowed, his lips parting like he wanted to speak, but wasn't sure he should. Finally he said, You think she's hiding something? I'd bet on it, I said. Nobody moves that fast, that clean, without a reason. I've seen her type before. Always smiling, always polite, but underneath it's all calculation. She didn't just stumble on those papers, Daniel. She was looking for them. He rubbed his temples. God, Sean, I should have told Margaret years ago. I should have told Andrew. Maybe then Vanessa wouldn't have had the chance to twist it. I leaned forward. Regret won't save you now. The question is, what do we do next? Because if she's willing to drag this into court, then we need to be ready for a fight she won't see coming. That evening I sat at my desk, with Daniel's papers spread across the surface. Deeds, appraisals, old bonds yellowed with time. I studied each one, looking for gaps, for something that might explain why Vanessa latched onto them so hard. And then I found it. A statement, not from Uncle Walter's land, not from the bonds, but from a safety deposit box. The signature line bore Daniel's name, but the ink looked fresher than it should have. Daniel, I called. He came into the room, rubbing his eyes. Did you sign this recently? He peered at the paper, squinting. No, that's at least 5 years old. I turned the page toward him. Then why does the signature look newer than the notary stamp? His face drained of color. I think Vanessa's been poking around more than she's admitting. And if she's bold enough to dig into your papers, she might be bold enough to do worse. Daniel sank into the chair across from me, his shoulders slumping. Sean, if she forged anything, then she's the one guilty of fraud, not you, I said flatly. The next day my suspicions deepened. A letter arrived, slipped under my front door. No postage, no envelope. Just a single sheet of paper with typed words. Stop interfering. This isn't your fight. Stay out of it. No signature, no explanation. But I didn't need one. Vanessa knew I was in the game now. I folded the paper neatly and tucked it into my jacket pocket. Then I looked at Daniel, who was staring at me with wide eyes. It's starting, I said, and if she thinks she can scare me off, she doesn't know me very well. For the first time in days, a flicker of hope lit his face. What do we do? I looked out the window, watching the snow fall heavy against the street, muffling everything in sight. We prepare. Because Vanessa's not just after your money, Daniel. She's after control. And I'll be damned if I let her take it. The letter sat on my kitchen table for hours. The words burned into my mind like they'd been carved in stone. Stop interfering. This isn't your fight. Stay out of it. The arrogance of it made my blood boil. Vanessa thought she could scare me off with a note slipped under my door. She didn't know me at all, If anything, that little stunt told me I was on the right trail. It meant she was worried. And when people like her got worried, they made mistakes. Daniel, on the other hand, was rattled. He'd read the letter twice, then folded it so tightly the creases split the paper. "Sean," he whispered, "she knows where you live. She knows you're involved now." "What if she what?" I snapped. "What's she gonna do? Leave me shivering on my porch in the middle of the night like she did to you? Don't forget, Daniel, she's the one playing with fire here, not us." Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. He rubbed his face, weary. "I don't want you dragged down in this mess." I leaned across the table. "You're my brother. That means your mess is my mess. And if Vanessa thinks she can bully her, threaten her way into taking control of this family, she's about to learn she picked the wrong Carter to tangle with." That night, long after Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch, I sat at my desk with his papers spread out in front of me. Deeds, stock certificates, appraisals. But my eyes kept drifting back to that one safety deposit statement, the one with the signature that looked too fresh. If Vanessa had gone as far as forging documents, she wasn't just greedy. She was reckless, and reckless people leave trails. I opened my laptop and began to dig. I wasn't a detective, but 30 years in construction management had taught me how to read contracts, spot falsified signatures, and sniff out inconsistencies. You don't survive decades in that business without learning to catch liars. First, I checked the notary stamp. The notary listed had retired 3 years before the document date. That was strike one. Second, I compared Daniel's known signatures from older bonds against the one on the safety deposit statement. The flourish on the C in Carter was wrong. Too neat, too deliberate. That was strike two. By midnight, I was convinced. Vanessa had forged it. The only question was why. The next morning, I drove Daniel into town. He needed air, and I needed information. Our first stop was the county clerk's office. The clerk, a tired-looking woman with glasses perched low on her nose, pulled the property records for Uncle Walter's land. "Everything looks in order," she said, flipping through the pages. "Transfer to Daniel Carter, filed 5 years ago. Taxes paid on time." "Any unusual inquiries lately?" I asked. She glanced at me over her glasses. "Confidential." I leaned in slightly. "Look, my brother's family situation is complicated. If someone's been poking around his records, I need to know." The woman hesitated, then sighed. "I can't give you names. But yes, someone's been requesting copies of these documents. Multiple times. Most within the last 2 months. I didn't need names. I already knew who it was. From there, we drove to the bank where Daniel kept the safety deposit box. The manager, a slick man in a navy suit, greeted us with a practiced smile. "We just need to confirm some details," I said, sliding the questionable statement across his desk. He examined it, frowning. "Strange. This doesn't match our records. The box is listed under Daniel Carter, and one authorized co-signer, Margaret Carter." Daniel jerked back in his chair. "Margaret?" "Yes," the manager said smoothly. "Added as a co-signer 2 years ago." My stomach dropped. "Who authorized that?" He tapped the page. "It's right here. Daniel Carter's signature." Daniel's face went pale. "That's not my signature." I leaned forward. "Then somebody forged it." The manager shifted uncomfortably. "I'll need to escalate this. Forgery is a serious accusation." "You do that," I said, standing. "And while you're at it, pull the entry logs for that box. I want to know exactly who's been inside it." Back in the truck, Daniel's hands were shaking. "Sean, Margaret signed it. She must have. That means she's in on this with Vanessa." I didn't answer right away. My gut told me it was true, but I needed proof. What I did know was that Vanessa's claws went deeper than I'd realized. She hadn't just poisoned Andrew. She'd roped Margaret into the scheme too. That made her twice as dangerous. That evening, as snow fell thick and heavy, I sat with Daniel by the fire again. "We've got 2 choices," I told him. We can wait for Vanessa to drag this into court, or we can get ahead of it. Find out exactly what she's hiding, and expose it before she has the chance. He stared into the flames. And what if what she's hiding destroys Andrew too? I didn't flinch. Then Andrew will have to learn the hard truth about the woman he married. Better now than 20 years from now when it's too late. Daniel closed his eyes, and for a moment he looked like he might shatter. I just wanted to protect them, Sean. All these years. All the secrets. I thought I was doing the right thing. I laid a hand on his shoulder. You can't protect people by lying to them, Daniel. Sometimes the only way to save them is to tell the truth, no matter how much it hurts. That night, long after Daniel went to bed, I got back on my laptop. If Vanessa thought she was the only one who could dig, she was about to be proven wrong. I typed her name into every database I could access. Court records, civil filings, even county liens. And just past midnight, I found it. 3 years ago, Vanessa Carter had filed for bankruptcy. Credit card debt, payday loans, over $50,000. And right there, listed in the records, was the name of a casino where half the debt originated. It wasn't just greed driving her, it was desperation, and desperate people. They'll burn down an entire family if it means saving themselves. The moment I saw the bankruptcy records on my laptop screen, I knew the truth. Vanessa wasn't just ambitious or manipulative. She was drowning. Gambling debts, payday loans, a history of financial collapse she had buried under that polished smile and soft-spoken charm. She had wrapped Andrew in a web, and now she was trying to spin Daniel's inheritance into the lifeline that would keep her head above water. But webs are fragile things. Tug at the right thread, and the whole thing comes undone. When I closed the laptop, the house was silent. Daniel was asleep upstairs, and the fire had burned down to faint embers. I sat there in the dark, replaying everything. Margaret's silence, Andrew's rage, Vanessa's threats. They were all connected, strands of her web, woven tight around my brother until he could barely breathe. And now, by pulling me into the fight, she'd made a mistake. Because I wasn't caught in her web, I was holding the scissors. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. The next morning, I went to see someone I hadn't spoken to in years, an old buddy named Frank Harrison. Frank had worked in private investigations after retiring from the sheriff's office, and though we'd lost touch, I knew he still had access to the kinds of databases I couldn't reach from my kitchen laptop. When I called, he answered in that gravelly voice I remembered. Sean Carter. Haven't heard from you in a decade. What kind of trouble are you in? The kind that smells like fraud, I told him. I need a background check on someone. Quietly, send me the name, he said. And Sean? Be careful. You don't usually call me unless there's blood in the water. By afternoon, Frank called back. You were right to be suspicious, he said without preamble. Vanessa Carter. Real name Vanessa Price. She changed it after her bankruptcy case 3 years ago. Maiden name was dragging her credit down, so she petitioned for a name change. She's been hiding a trail of debt collectors ever since. I felt my jaw tighten. What else? She's got a sealed record from a casino in Atlantic City. 2 arrests for disorderly conduct. Probably drunken fights at the tables. Never convicted. Charges dismissed, but still not a good look. And Andrew doesn't know any of this, I said. Doesn't look like it, my guess. She's been keeping him in the dark the same way she kept you all in the dark about her bankruptcy. Sean, this woman isn't just greedy. She's desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. That evening, I sat Daniel down and laid the folder Frank had sent me on the table. His hand shook as he opened it, eyes scanning the documents. With each page, his face drained of color. Bankruptcy. Arrests. Sean, my son married a stranger, he whispered. No, I said quietly. He married someone who built herself into what she thought he wanted. And now she's trying to use your inheritance to erase her past. She's been steering him against you so she can get control of the money. He pressed a hand to his forehead. God, Andrew doesn't stand a chance. He'll believe anything she tells him. Then it's our job to show him the truth, I said. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. The next day, Andrew called Daniel's phone. When Daniel didn't answer, it rang through to mine. He'd forwarded his calls. Dad, Andrew's voice was sharp, tired. Are you ready to talk about this? Or are you still hiding behind Uncle Sean? I took a steadying breath. Andrew, it's me. Your uncle. There was a pause, then a bitter laugh. Figures. Dad doesn't even have the guts to pick up he's here, I said. But before you say anything else, you need to hear the truth about your wife. His tone snapped like a whip. Don't you dare. Andrew, listen to me, I said firmly. Vanessa's been lying to you. She changed her name after declaring bankruptcy. She's got gambling debts, payday loans, even arrests she never told you about. She's been pushing this inheritance fight not for you, for herself, because she's desperate silence. For a long time, nothing but the faint hiss of the phone line. Then Andrew's voice, low and trembling. You're lying. I wish I were, I said, but I've got the paperwork. Court filings, records. You can read them yourself, or you can keep letting her pull your strings until she drags you down with her. The line went dead. Daniel looked at me, horrified. You think he'll believe you? I shook my head. Not right away. But seeds of doubt, they grow fast, and Vanessa won't be able to keep him blind forever. That night, I lay awake listening to the house creak in the winter wind, knowing we'd crossed a line. Vanessa would know we'd exposed her past, and she wouldn't go quietly. If anything, she'd double down, but that was fine, because the more tangled her web became, the easier it would be to rip apart. The folder Frank had sent me sat on the kitchen table like a loaded gun. Daniel hadn't touched it since the night I showed him. He avoided even looking in its direction, as if the papers inside were poisonous. But we both knew the truth. Sooner or later, those documents would have to be used. The phone call with Andrew had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. His voice, hard, brittle, defensive, reminded me of a man clinging to a lifeline. Only the lifeline wasn't a rope. It was a chain, and Vanessa was the one holding the other end. Daniel had asked me that night if I thought Andrew would ever believe us. I told him I didn't know. But deep down, I believed one thing. Truth has a way of clawing its way out. Lies, no matter how neat, always leave cracks, and Vanessa's web was full of cracks. The only question was when and how to rip it wide open. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. The opportunity came 2 days later. Margaret called Daniel's phone, the first time she'd tried since the night they locked him out. I watched his face as he stared at the screen, the name of the woman he loved flashing like a cruel joke. Answer it, I urged. His thumb hesitated before sliding across the screen. Margaret? His voice was cautious, brittle. Daniel, she said, her tone flat. Andrew wants to talk. Tonight. At the house, my eyes met Daniel's. A trap? Maybe. But it was also a chance. We'll be there, I said before Daniel could speak. That evening, we pulled into Daniel's driveway just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The house looked the same, but it felt like a fortress. Blinds drawn, lights glowing faintly behind closed curtains. Margaret opened the door. She didn't look at Daniel, didn't look at me, just stepped aside, like she had before. Andrew was waiting in the living room, arms folded across his chest. Vanessa sat next to him, legs crossed, a thin smile playing on her lips. But this time, I noticed something different. A flicker of tension in her eyes, a stiffness in her posture. She knew what we carried. Sit, Andrew said. His voice trembled, though he tried to sound firm. We sat. Daniel looked like he might shatter, his hands trembling on his knees. I placed the folder on the coffee table between us. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward it, like a moth to a flame. What's that? Andrew demanded. Truth, I said simply. Daniel swallowed hard. Andrew, I need you to hear me. All of me. No more secrets. I kept Uncle Walter's inheritance quiet because I was afraid. Afraid of what money could do to us. I thought I was protecting the family. I was wrong. I should have trusted you. Andrew's face hardened. You lied to me my whole life. You let me think we were broke while you had land and stock stashed away. How do I forgive that? By seeing who's really been lying to you, I said, sliding the folder across the table. Andrew hesitated, then opened it. His eyes moved over the bankruptcy papers, the name change documents, the casino records. His lips parted, his brow furrowed. What is this? He asked, his voice quieter now. It's your wife's history, I said steadily. Vanessa Price, not Carter. She changed her name after she declared bankruptcy. $50,000 in debt, gambling losses, payday loans, 2 arrests in Atlantic City. She's been hiding it all from you, Andrew? Every bit of it. Andrew's head jerked toward her. Vanessa? She laughed, ash brittle sharp. This is ridiculous. Sean, you're grasping at straws. Old records? Sealed documents. None of it matters now. People make mistakes. Andrew's voice rose. You told me you'd never had debt. You swore you'd never even had a late bill. Her jaw tightened, but she kept her smile plastered on. And you believed me? Because you wanted to. Because you didn't want to see me as anything but perfect. Daniel leaned forward, his voice breaking. Son, she's been using you. She's using all of us. She doesn't care about family or future. She cares about that money, and she'll burn us all down to get it. Andrew's face flushed red. He turned to Vanessa, desperate. Tell me he's lying. Her eyes flashed. Don't let them turn you against me, Andrew. They're trying to steal what's yours. What's ours? I cut in, my tone sharp. No, Vanessa. You've been steering this fight from the start. You forged Daniel's signature to get into that safety deposit box. You threatened him with lawyers. You're the one who's been lying. Andrew's eyes widened. You forged Dad's signature? Vanessa's mask cracked for just a split second. Her lips pressed thin, her nostrils flared. Then she laughed again, though the sound was hollow. You can't prove that. I leaned closer. Maybe not yet. But the bank logs will, and when they show your name on those visits, you'll be the one facing fraud charges, not Daniel. The room went still. Margaret shifted uncomfortably, her hands twisting in her lap. Andrew stared at Vanessa, his expression torn between rage and disbelief. Vanessa held her composure, but I could see the fear creeping into her eyes now. Finally, Andrew stood. His voice was low, trembling. You lied to me, Vanessa. About everything. Her smile vanished. Andrew! He held up a hand. No, don't. I don't know what's true anymore. But I know one thing. You've been hiding things from me. And maybe Uncle Sean's right. Maybe you've been using me. Daniel's shoulders sagged with relief. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a crack in her armor. Vanessa's eyes darted between us, fury blazing now. You think you've won? This isn't over. Not by a long shot. As we left the house that night, Daniel leaned heavily on me, tears in his eyes. You saved me, Sean. You saved my son. I shook my head. Not yet. Vanessa's still got her claws in him. But tonight we cut deep, and she knows it, because once betrayal is unmasked, there's no putting the mask back on. For 2 nights after the confrontation, Daniel barely slept. He walked my floors until the boards creaked like old bones, muttering half-prayers and unfinished sentences under his breath. I could tell he was replaying it all. Andrew's face when he saw the records, Margaret twisting her hands in her lap, Vanessa's mask cracking as the truth pressed in on her. I knew Vanessa wasn't finished. People like her don't quit when they're cornered. They lash out harder, sharper, trying to claw their way back to control. And that's exactly why we couldn't wait for her to make her next move. We had to make ours first. By the 3rd morning, I told Daniel what I'd been thinking since we left his house. It's time we end this on our terms, I said. He looked up from his coffee, dark circles under his eyes. End it. Sean, you saw her. She won't stop. She'll stop, I said, my voice steady, because we're going to give her a choice. And no matter what she picks, she loses before we continue. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. That afternoon, we drove back to Daniel's house. Snow crunched under our boots as we walked up the drive. I could feel Daniel trembling beside me, but I kept my stride firm. We weren't here to beg. We were here to deliver the truth like a hammer blow. Margaret opened the door again, her eyes flickering nervously between us. "He's in the living room," she whispered. Andrew sat rigid on the sofa, his jaw tight, arms crossed. Vanessa was next to him, her smile practiced but brittle, like porcelain ready to crack. "Well," she said, her voice light. "Back again so soon? Couldn't stay away?" I ignored her and placed a sealed envelope on the coffee table. "This is everything we've got," I said. "Bankruptcy filings, casino records, your name change petition, and notes from a bank manager who's reviewing forgery on Daniel's deposit box. If this goes to court, Vanessa, it won't be Daniel in trouble. It'll be you." Her smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I asked. "Then call the bank. See how fast they pull those entry logs. Or better yet, wait until law enforcement does it for you." Andrew shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us. "Is this true, Vanessa?" She touched his knee, her voice suddenly soft, syrup sweet. "Baby, they're twisting things, trying to scare us. I made mistakes years ago, sure, but that has nothing to do with this inheritance. This is about what your father kept from us." I leaned forward, my voice sharp. "No, this is about you trying to erase your past with Daniel's money. And here's the truth, Vanessa. You don't have the leverage you think you do. You're not holding the cards. We are." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" I let the silence stretch before answering. "Here's the deal. You walk away, today. No claims on the inheritance, no threats of lawsuits, no more poisoning Andrew against his father. You leave this family alone, or I'll make sure every skeleton in your closet sees daylight. Bankruptcy, gambling, fraud. All of it." Daniel flinched beside me. Margaret let out a soft gasp. Andrew stared at his wife, horror dawning on his face. Vanessa's voice sharpened to a knife edge. "You think you can threaten me?" "It's not a threat," I said calmly. "It's an ultimatum. Either you walk away quietly or you go down in flames. Your choice." For the first time since I'd known her, Vanessa faltered. Her mask slipped fully, anger flashing raw in her eyes. "You don't know what you're asking," she hissed. "You don't know what I owe, what I've been through." "Then tell him," I said, nodding toward Andrew. "Tell your husband the truth. Tell him how deep the debt goes, how many lies you've told. Or walk out that door and save him the—" Heartbreak of watching it all unravel. Andrew's face was pale, his voice unsteady. "Vanessa, is it true? All of it?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. The silence said more than any confession could. Finally she stood, her hands trembling, fury etched across her face. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Both of you. I'll make sure of it." Andrew reached for her arm, but she pulled away, storming out of the room. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. The house fell into silence. Margaret sat frozen, her hands pressed together, lips moving in some silent prayer. Daniel looked at his son, tears in his eyes. "Andrew," he began. But Andrew shook his head, his face twisted with pain. "I don't know what to think anymore," he whispered. Then he rose and walked upstairs, leaving us in the heavy quiet of a house broken by truth. As we left, Daniel leaned heavily on me, his voice shaking. "She won't go quietly, Sean." "You saw her face. She's going to come back swinging." "I know," I said. "But now?" "She's bleeding, and when people like Vanessa start bleeding, they make mistakes. That's when we strike, because the ultimatum wasn't the end. It was just the opening move in a fight that was about to get even uglier." The slam of that front door lingered in my ears long after Vanessa stormed out. It was the sound of something breaking. Not wood, not glass, but trust. Fragile and invisible, yet louder than any crash. Daniel sat slumped on the sofa, staring at the space where she'd stood just moments before. Margaret's lips moved silently in prayer, her eyes shut tight as if she could rewind time and erase everything. But the one I watched most was Andrew. He stood at the foot of the stairs, his head bowed, fists clenched, his chest rising and falling in uneven bursts. He was a man torn in two, between the father who raised him and the woman he thought he knew. Finally, he lifted his head, eyes red-rimmed. "How could she?" he whispered. "How could she lie to me about everything?" Daniel reached for him, his hand trembling. "Son, I don't have answers for why she did what she did. But I do know this. I never stopped loving you. I never kept the inheritance to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you from exactly this." Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. Andrew flinched at his words, his eyes wet. For a moment, I thought he might collapse into Daniel's arms. But then he pulled back, shaking his head. "I need time," he muttered. I can't stay here right now." He grabbed his coat and slipped out the side door, leaving behind silence heavy enough to choke us. Daniel's shoulders sagged, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I've lost him," he whispered. "Even after the truth, I've lost him." I laid a hand on his shoulder. "No, you haven't. He's not gone, Daniel. He's wounded. But wounds heal. What matters is that the seed of truth is in him now. He can't unsee it." He nodded faintly, though his eyes betrayed his doubt. Margaret remained quiet, still praying softly, but I couldn't ignore the way she hadn't defended Vanessa once. Maybe her silence was guilt. Maybe it was self-preservation. But it told me something. She wasn't fully in Vanessa's corner anymore. 2 days later, Andrew called me. Not Daniel. Me. "Uncle Sean?" His voice was hoarse, hollow. "I'm here," I said. "She's gone," he whispered. Vanessa packed a bag and left. No note, no call, just gone. I closed my eyes, the weight of it heavy, but unsurprising. "And how do you feel about that?" There was a long pause, then a broken laugh, like my whole life was a lie. "Like I married a ghost." "Not a ghost," I said quietly. "A spider." "She spun a web around you, Andrew, but now you're free of it. Painful as it is, freedom always costs something." That night, Andrew came to my house. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. His eyes were sunken, his shoulders slumped, his hands trembling when I handed him a cup of coffee. Daniel sat across from him, silent at first, tears threatening but held back. Andrew wouldn't meet his father's gaze. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Son, I can't undo the lies I told. I can't change the years I kept the inheritance from you, but I can promise you this. I won't hide anything again. Whatever future we have, it will be built on truth. If you'll let me." Andrew's lip trembled. He stared into his coffee, then whispered, "I don't know if I can forgive you yet." Daniel nodded slowly. "I'll wait. However long it takes, because I love you. And nothing, not money, not lies, not Vanessa, will change that." Andrew looked up, and in his eyes I saw the faintest flicker of the boy I remembered. The boy who used to ride on Daniel's shoulders at ball games. The boy who used to call me Uncle Sean with a grin as wide as the sky. Still, the fracture was deep. Over the following week, Andrew stayed with friends, refusing to return home. Margaret stayed at the house, keeping her distance from Daniel. She called me once, her voice quiet, almost pleading. "Sean," she said, "I didn't know about Vanessa's debts. I swear it. I thought Daniel betrayed us, and I let her fill my head. I don't know how to fix this. I didn't sugarcoat it. You start by standing beside your husband, not locking him out in the cold. That's how you fix it," she cried softly on the line, then hung up without another word. But Vanessa? She wasn't done. One evening, a letter arrived in Daniel's mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the sharp, angular handwriting. This isn't over. You think you've exposed me, but you haven't seen the worst of it. Watch your back. I handed it to Daniel without a word. His face went pale, his hands trembling. She'll ruin me, Sean. Even if Andrew leaves her, she'll find a way to destroy me. No, I said firmly. She'll destroy herself. People like Vanessa always do, but we'll be ready when it happens. The marriage between Andrew and Vanessa had cracked beyond repair. She was gone physically, but her shadow lingered, and Andrew, though torn and broken, was finally starting to see her for what she truly was. Daniel wasn't healed. Margaret wasn't forgiven. The family was still fractured, raw, uncertain. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like we had a fighting chance. Because once a marriage built on lies shatters, there's no gluing it back together. And in the ruins, truth finally has room to grow. The days that followed Vanessa's departure were quiet, but not peaceful. The house felt like a battlefield after the smoke clears. No gunfire, no shouting, just the weight of ruins left behind. Daniel spent long hours at my kitchen table, staring at papers he barely touched. Andrew drifted in and out, sometimes staying for dinner, sometimes disappearing without explanation. Margaret remained at the family home, phoning occasionally but keeping her distance. Every call was the same. Regret in her voice, silence in her pauses, tears she tried to hide. But the strangest part was the absence of Vanessa's voice. No more threats at the doorstep, no more smirking remarks in the living room. She was gone in body, but her shadow lingered like a stain on the walls. Even Daniel, freed from her presence, carried her weight in the slump of his shoulders. One evening, as snow fell thick outside the windows, Daniel broke the silence. His voice was quiet, but steady. Sean, I've made a decision. I looked up from my coffee. About what? The inheritance, he said. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss a story like this one. He spread the papers across the table. Deeds, bonds, statements. I can't keep this anymore. It's poisoned everything. Margaret's faith in me, Andrew's trust, my own peace of mind. Uncle Walter left it to me, but all it's done is tear us apart. I frowned. Daniel, it wasn't the inheritance that did this. It was the lies, the secrecy, and Vanessa's greed. He shook his head. Doesn't matter. As long as this money sits in my name, it'll be a weapon. Something for others to fight over or for me to hide behind. I don't want that anymore. I leaned back, studying him. His eyes were clearer than they'd been in weeks. Not free, but resolute. What are you planning? I asked. I'm setting up a trust, he said. Half will go to charity, hospitals, scholarships, programs that actually help people. The other half will be placed in a protected fund for Andrew. He'll get it when he's older, when he's ready. Not now, not when he's still bleeding from this. I stared at him, torn. That's generous. But you don't have to give Vanessa the satisfaction of knowing she drove you to this. This isn't about Vanessa, Daniel said firmly. It's about me making peace with my choices. It's about showing Andrew that I never wanted to steal his future. And it's about finally letting go of the secret that's haunted me for years. For the first time in weeks, I believed him. The next day, we met with an attorney I trusted, an old friend from town who'd handled my affairs more than once. He reviewed Daniel's plan carefully, nodding as he listened. This will protect the assets, he said. Vanessa won't be able to touch a cent. Andrew will inherit in time, but under conditions that keep it safe from outside influence, and the charitable half will be locked in place. Daniel signed the documents with steady hands. No tremors, no hesitation, just finality. When he looked up, I saw something different in his face. Not joy, not relief, but release. The kind of release that comes from finally putting down a burden you've carried too long. That evening, Andrew stopped by. His face was weary, his eyes still clouded with pain. But when Daniel told him about the trust, about how half would go to him when the time was right, I saw something flicker in Andrew's eyes. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. "Dad," he whispered, "why didn't you just tell me this from the start?" Daniel's eyes welled with tears. "Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd see me as selfish or greedy or worse. But I should have trusted you. I see that now." Andrew swallowed hard. His lip trembled, but he nodded. "It's a start." Those 3 words broke Daniel open. He reached for his son, and though Andrew didn't fully embrace him, he didn't pull away either. It was awkward, fragile, but it was something. Later that night, as I sat alone by the fire, I thought about what healing really costs. Daniel had lost trust, dignity, peace. Andrew had lost innocence, the belief that love was unshakable. Margaret had lost her marriage's foundation. And me? I'd lost sleep, patience, and the illusion that family was immune to the poisons of greed and secrecy. But maybe that was the cost of rebuilding. You had to burn away the lies, no matter how much it hurt, before you could lay down new foundations. Still, one thing gnawed at me. Vanessa was gone, but not defeated. Her last letter still echoed in my mind. "This isn't over. Watch your back." I knew she. Winter gave way to spring slowly that year. The snow melted in gray patches along the roadside. The air carried the smell of thawing earth, and people in town started talking about planting gardens again. Life, in its stubborn way, kept moving forward. For Daniel. Though every day was a balancing act. He spent mornings with lawyers and accountants finalizing the trust. Afternoons, he tried to repair the fragile bridge between himself and Andrew. Evenings, he sat quietly in my kitchen, sipping coffee and staring into the fire like he was searching for something in the flames. Margaret stayed at the family home, calling occasionally, her voice soft, hesitant. I could tell she wanted reconciliation, but she hadn't yet earned Daniel's forgiveness. He still carried the sting of that night when she turned the lock against him. Some wounds don't close as quickly as the seasons change, and yet there was progress. Andrew came by more often. Sometimes he helped Daniel go over papers. Sometimes he just sat in silence with us. Silence was better than absence. Silence meant he hadn't given up. But beneath it all, I couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa's shadow still stretched across our lives. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story like this one. It was a Tuesday morning when the phone rang. Frank Harrison's voice was on the other end, low and steady. "Sean," he said, "you'll want to hear this." Vanessa Price, Carter, whatever name she's using now, was picked up last night in Atlantic City. Fraud and embezzlement charges. She'd been running schemes at the casino, forging signatures, moving money through shell accounts. The FBI's involved. I sat back, letting the words sink in. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. Not gloating, just inevitability. "She did it to herself," I murmured. Frank's voice softened. "That's the thing about people like her. You give them enough rope, they hang themselves." I told Daniel that evening. He didn't cheer, didn't smile. He just lowered his head into his hands and let out a long, shuddering breath. "God help her," he whispered. "God already did," I said quietly. "She had chances." She chose this path. Andrew heard the news 2 days later. He showed up on my porch, eyes hollow, face pale. "It's true?" he asked. "It's true," I said. "She'll be facing years, maybe decades, behind bars." He sat on the step, his hands clasped tight. "I married her Uncle Sean. I trusted her. I defended her against Dad, against you. And now—" His voice broke. "Now I don't even know who I am without her." I sat beside him. "You're Andrew Carter, my nephew, Daniel's son. You're not her mistakes. You never were. And maybe this is the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the people we love are the ones who cost us the most. But that doesn't mean we stop living. It means we learn. We carry the scars and we keep going. Weeks later, Daniel finalized the trust. Half went to charities across the state: hospitals, schools, scholarships for kids who'd never had a chance. The other half was placed in Andrew's name, locked tight until he was ready. When the documents were signed, Daniel stood a little taller. Not proud exactly, but lighter. For the first time in years, he wasn't carrying a secret. That night, as we sat by the fire, he looked at me with tired but clearer eyes. "You saved me, Sean," he said, "not just from Vanessa, from myself, from the lies I told. From the man I was becoming." I shook my head. "No, Daniel. I just stood beside you. You did the hard part, facing the truth." The family would never be the same. Margaret still had a long road to earn back Daniel's trust. Andrew still carried the shame of defending Vanessa so blindly, and Daniel still bore the scars of betrayal. But healing isn't about going back to what was. It's about building something new from what remains. For me, the lesson was clear. Money doesn't destroy families. Lies do. Secrets do. The inheritance didn't poison Daniel's family. Silence did. And in the end, the real inheritance wasn't land or bonds or $1 million. It was truth. Costly, painful truth. Because truth always demands a price. And we had paid it, every one of us. But in paying, we'd also bought something far more valuable: a chance to begin again.